Hi, this is Jim Cranston from 7 Every Minute and 7everyminute.com, the podcast and website about reimagining your life. Thanks for joining me tonight to talk about facing life with confidence. So let's get started. If you like what you hear tonight, please leave a like and tell your friends and send me a message. Tonight will be another kind of short one. Well, one never knows once I start to talk, but hopefully it'll be a little shorter. And it's really about kind of attitude adjustment and gratitude. And I know I said it was about living with confidence, but those two things really lead you into living a life full of confidence. So I was helping a friend recently, and when I realized how much they had to live on, which was not very much at all, I thought about how, I really have no basis to complain about anything. And yet, most of the time, they're in pretty good spirits. I mean, they're actually in a really good mood. And so they live a simple life, but not a plain life at all. And I remember my own advice, both to you, my followers, and to myself, right, to be mindful of all that you have. And they were very mindful of their blessings. They had a lot of them in little ways. And so this isn't to say don't try to be your best self, but remember to judge against what you could be, you know, how you yourself could be rather than what you think other people are being. And I just remember today that I think Bill Gates is like around 2 years younger than me. And Father Greg Boyle, who I've often spoken about, he does the Los Angeles Gang Intervention Mission. He's almost exactly my age. So I could interpret those facts in different ways. I could focus on the material aspects of Bill Gates or the sharing of good faith and trying to turn people's attitudes around by Father Greg, right? And get myself really depressed, kind of, oh, look at all they've done, look how relatively little I've done. However, if I focus on learning from them and trying to make me the best me possible, then I'll not only improve myself, but I'll be working from an attitude of growth instead of an attitude of dissatisfaction. And remember, we talked a couple of weeks ago the importance of self talk. If you talk down to yourself all the time, you will bring yourself down, even if you're talented or whatever. And actually, somebody just telling me today, their granddaughter, um, who I have met, um, a perfectly normal looking early teenager, and for some reason, somebody must have started the rumor that she was unattractive. And so she was telling her grandmother how poor she looked. And just imagine if somebody said, wow, you look really pretty. And then she'd be saying to herself all the time, wow, somebody said I looked really pretty. Your self talk really controls how you live your life. So you want to be very careful about that. And always make sure that if you catch yourself doing negative self talk, that you back up, turn it around, and recast it into a positive light. But that brings us to a second point. And that second point is even if we feel we're on a track to being our best selves, then what about the realities of all that's wrong in the world? And I say, especially today, if you look at the news, everything today is just horrible. Well, it turns out Saturday, in Saturday's Wall Street Journal editorial to the rescue, the title is, there we go, The Reagan Lessons for the Trumpian Right. And it was actually pretty enlightening and a good reminder of what was going on, not just now, but then. If you weren't there back in Reagan's time, there was a lot of talk about how everything in the US based upon a horrible foundation, how bad we were, in the past. So we obviously are a rotten place. We're a nation in decline, how we shouldn't even try to say we're a world leader anymore, how Russia had a far superior military, and we were so far behind we could never catch up, how we'd lost our manufacturing base, couldn't recover it, and on and on and on and on. Sound familiar? Sound like any headlines you've seen today? Sound like most of the headlines you've seen today? Of course, around that time, it was global cooling instead of global warming, and it was going to end the Earth forthwith. It was imminent, and it was because of other things, and it just goes on and on. But the difference is, in this case, Reagan spoke honestly to the nation about the situation, asked for people's support, made some very risky moves and huge investments, and ultimately ushered in an era of world peace, which is the only thing that a lot of you have ever known. It was around that time, and of course, certainly a little earlier in the Kennedy era, you may recall, that the whole duck and cover, we talked about this before, the whole duck and cover exercises for the inevitable nuclear war that would just wipe out the world. And somehow, a lot of forward thinking people and a lot of people who focused on making themselves better rather than being taught a life of victimhood brought it through some pretty dicey times and brought us to a much better future. In Reagan's case, he focused on what could be right instead of what could be considered wrong. He admitted faults and worked to correct them, and in many cases he did. And of course, the whole nation pulled in unity, and that's a really important piece. So you might be saying, well, that's great on a national or international scale. What about the most difficult change of all, changing our own personal lives? Well, the exact same tricks work there too. We can be scared about all that we see in the news, or instead of feeling hopeless and doomed, we can see that where there's good, actually good is pretty much everywhere. And we can work to grow that good and reduce the evil. We can face the world with the self-confidence that comes from ourselves instead of loathing and fear. As we've talked about many times, the decision as to how we react to a situation, that's mostly under our own control. You don't have to wake up and look at the carefully tailored social media feeds and get taken down some horrible pathway where everything is miserable. Instead, you can get up, do a morning priming routine, which we've talked about recently, that primes you to be the best you possible for the day, one who's ready to face a challenge and work through it. You don't have to be annoyed that you don't have the best phone or the fastest computer, and instead be thrilled that you're living better than much, maybe most, of the world will ever attain, or even can imagine. You are in control of your attitude, and every decision you make affects that outcome. If you sit and watch TV or most movies, you'll be constantly bombarded with a stream of suggestions about how your life could be much more fun, interesting, better, satisfying if you just spent more money on some particular thing. Now think back to my friend. They lived a pretty happy life. However, their big current joy was a small plastic aquarium with an LED light so they could get a pet fish for company. Okay, stop and think what your reaction was to that. Was it pity that that's all their life was? Or was it thoughtful, perhaps remembering hours watching a little goldfish of your own? Or was it remembering a simpler time in your life when any simple pleasure was special because you hadn't been conditioned to expect the world on a platter? Same situation, and it's up to you how you react to it. You could be cynical and analytical, or you could use it to find peace. It's up to you. So with that, I wish you a good week and hope you can find the framework to rediscover the confidence that comes with satisfaction and mindfulness and to find the peace in your life. We've been trained to be very judgmental and somewhat cynical of life's simple pleasures by many vested interests. Remember that for every stimulus that enters your awareness, you have a choice of how you react to it. You can follow the programming that's been being pushed at you from all ways in our modern society and by people you may not even realize, or you can follow your own conscious life and consciously decide to live your life in a way that brings out the best you and allows you to face all of life's challenges with confidence. And I think that you'll find the confident path is much more satisfying overall in every way, and I know that you can do it. So that's it for the evening. As always, ukr7.com. That's the website where we have links for supporting the Ukraine. Please remember the war in Ukraine is just dragging on, and if you can do anything to support them or any cause that you want. World Central Kitchen is on that page also, a link to World Central Kitchen. They work in many humanitarian areas. If you work in anything else, no matter how it is, you feel comfortable supporting other people, whether it's just being a friend, donating something, however makes you feel the most involved in changing the world, I would encourage you, please, do something to try and help somebody else. Remember, one of the best ways to care for yourself is to care for others. When you think outside yourself, it changes your whole perspective on the world. As always, thank you for stopping by. If you found something interesting or useful, please pass it along and please hit that like button. If not, please drop me a comment as to what you'd like to hear. Have a great week. Remember to live the life that you dreamed of, because that's the path to true contentment. Love and encouragement to everyone. See you next week on 7 Every Minute and 7everyminute.com. Thank you. Bye.